Hello. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Kara Goodwin, and I'm the host of the Meditation Conversation podcast. And if you've watched some of these YouTube lives lately, you will hear me talk about that the Meditation Conversation podcast is soon to become the Soul Elevation podcast. So that's coming just in the next few weeks. I've got a few more podcasts to release under the Meditation Conversation title, and then we'll move to Soul Elevation. So I'm really excited about that change. So today I want to talk about ascension and some ways that we may be blocking ascension that just feel like they're a regular part of human existence. I know that there are things that I have as I've come along in my journey. um, I have definitely experienced these things and not realized how detrimental they are to my growth. And so to begin this, I want to talk about the Dr. David Hawkins scale of consciousness. So I'm going to try to share my screen here. And I have not done this yet on YouTube. So hopefully it's working. Okay. So I hope you can see that. What I'm sharing here is the Hawking scale of consciousness, and I really want you to focus on the left side of the screen. So the column that's called name of level, and the column that's called energetic log. And so, if you've never seen this scale before, I pulled this from a website called life-longlearner.com, and I'm not familiar with the four columns on the left. So I just want to stay focused on the four columns on the right. I'm not familiar with. So I want to stay focused on the two columns on the left. Now, this is a numerical scale of consciousness. And if you haven't looked into David Hawking's work, I highly recommend that you go to that you read his book, Power versus Force. And I'll try to remember to put the link to that in the notes. But this is where he talks about the levels of consciousness. And he actually quantified the levels of consciousness, and he used muscle testing, and he used different ways of gaining confirmation from within himself, but also beyond his own conscious bias is how muscle testing is supposed to work. And I think it was muscle testing and not a pendulum, but all of those work in kind of the same way. But in this scale, you've got enlightenment at being between 700 and 1,000 as kind of the highest level of consciousness. Below that is peace at 600, joy at 540. And you can keep reading down this list until you get to the very lowest levels of consciousness, which is shame at 20 and guilt at 30. So you look at the difference between shame and enlightenment, and we can think of enlightenment as ascension. I think they're two words that describe the same thing. It's this shifting into a higher level of consciousness where your reality is completely reconfigured. You understand things beyond the illusion, and you're not buying into the mainstream. You're not getting pulled into the regular kind of human experience in terms of the anger, the sadness, the grief, all of that. So it's a different way of living life. It's a different way of viewing life. It's a different way of seeing challenges. um, a lot of psychic skills are turned on with enlightenment, a lot of ability to understand things beyond what is said, beyond the conscious information that you have, where you're able to pull information beyond, in the moment, through energy, through the flow, in ways that you maybe didn't consciously try to learn. It just comes to you. Accurate information comes to you in the moment. That kind of thing is enlightenment. So on the opposite, again, enlightenment has a 700 to 1,000 level scale. And on the opposite side of enlightenment. So the very kind of lowest level of existence from a consciousness perspective is shame, where you're operating only at an energetic number of 20 versus that 700 to 1,000, and guilt, which is operating at 30. So only 10 numbers above that, 10 energy units, however you want to think of it. I mean, to a certain extent, the numbers are a little bit arbitrary. Um, it's not like they're watts or anything like that. But what's interesting, I mean, there's so many things that are interesting with Dr. Hawking's work, but one of them is anger, because we can think of anger as being such a low vibrational expression of our consciousness. And that's, if you compare anger with shame, it's a whole 130 numbers above shame. So, that's just very interesting, because I think, again, that a lot of us think that anger is the lowest that we can go. But that shame and that guilt is actually when we're operating with the weakest level of energy. And so this is what I want to focus on today, is that guilt and that shame. So I'm going to stop sharing this. So one of the reasons that this idea even came to mind for this to be the topic for today is because in my last YouTube live, I talked about alcohol and stopping drinking alcohol as a way to increase your energy and increase your ability to access higher levels of consciousness. And one of the parting words that I was leaving you with, one of the parting messages I was leaving viewers with was, don't listen to this and then feel guilty and then feel shameful that if you have been drinking for years, and you don't necessarily think you have a problem, or even if you do think you have a problem, you have the ability to stop right now and to have your next moment be new, and the moment after that be new, and the moment after that be new. And so when we're thinking about making changes for the better, we can slip into feeling guilt, feeling shame, feeling shameful for the way that we have been. And I want you to understand that that works against your ascension, that works against your spiritual evolution when you allow yourself to get tied up in guilt and shame. And so we don't want to go so far in the other direction. I mean, I'm not talking to narcissists here who don't have the ability to feel guilt or to feel shame, people who never see themselves as wrong, people who can't see how their actions affect other people negatively. That's a different problem. So it's not that we're wanting to try to go so far in the other direction that we're not willing to take responsibility and accountability for our actions, and we're no longer worried about, not worried, but we're no longer taking into consideration how our actions can affect other people, because we have a powerful ability to uplift people and to be a ray of light for people. And it's not about just not worrying, not taking anything into consideration, and just living our own life for whatever makes us happiest in the moment. But when we are weighed down by shame and by guilt, we are weakening our energy. We are pulling ourselves down. And the thing is that there's a lot of religious programming that makes some really deep habits, really deep grooves in our habitual patterns for guilt and shame. And this is well known that a lot of people who have a very religious background, especially fundamental religious beliefs, there can be such indoctrination that there's one way to be, there's one way to act, and there's another way that's bad. And if you act that way, you're going to hell, or you will be forsaken, or God's not going to love you anymore, or you'll be unworthy. And the thing is that we're all living human experiences. We're all making mistakes as we go. Sometimes we know we could have done better. Sometimes we know that we let our anger get the better of us, or we overstepped, and we know we kind of knew what we were doing. But sometimes we had another intention, and we were trying our best, and it didn't work out the way that we were hoping it would, or there were negative consequences for somebody that were unforeseen. That's part of the human existence. And if we keep holding on to that, we are going to keep holding ourselves in a weaker, lower energy. And so releasing that guilt and shame, and shifting your understanding to one of acceptance, one of bravely accepting your life's path, your mistakes, recognizing how your mistakes have paved the way for who you are now and who you're becoming. Through our mistakes, we get an idea of who we don't want to be sometimes. And so there really is a lot of fertile soil in our mistakes, in the things that the ways that we've wronged people, even just in the ability to have that self-acceptance, to ask for forgiveness from somebody else, to have that humility. Um, I don't think I would want to interact really with somebody who had never made any mistakes, who who doesn't understand what it's like to make mistakes. We need each other, and we need to see those role models who are also kind of fumbling their way through life and not always getting it right, but still brushing themselves back off and letting things go. And it's only through our challenges that we're able to do that. So please consider the role of guilt and shame, and understand that they're part of that. What you're going through, what you've been through, is part of life. Let things go. Work on releasing things. Release yourself from the bondage of what you're unable to let go of, what you have been unable to let go of, that you feel shameful about or guilty about. It's really a hard place to be. And again, I have been there in my younger years. I was plagued by as a child, I was plagued by guilt and shame, to where I could hardly sleep sometimes. And these were, I mean, childish things. But I would find things. I would ruminate over things. I would find things. I'd like search my brain for things that I had forgotten about, what to feel guilty of next. Just almost like trying to clear out everything. But there was this enormous guilt that came, and it was really hard work. And it doesn't have to be so hard. You can reconfigure your understanding, start to see your life's challenges and the things that you have been feeling guilty about in a different way. Ask for forgiveness if that's appropriate. Forgive yourself, and move forward intentionally, that you won't repeat those mistakes, that those are a different version of you, and you're stepping into a new version of yourself. So, um, I hope that that's helpful. Thank you so much for being here. And tomorrow's New Year's Eve. So I hope that you have some thoughts about how you want to step into 2025 to be the very best version of yourself, to be holding the highest high frequency, high vibrational light within you, to be the fullest expression of divinity and God that you can be. And again, that doesn't mean that you never make mistakes. It means that you walk bravely in your light, and you are courageous and loving and kind and forgiving. And I wish all of that for you in 2025 and more. And I leave you with many, many blessings. Thank you so much.